everybody. Welcome back to Grumpy Acres. We've got Tag with us again this week. It's time for episode 11 of our Principles of Freedom talk. Last week, we talked about how the rights of the people are set forth in a written constitution and how it delineates the powers of the three branches and it creates checks and balances. This week's principles, Principle 20, 21, and 22, detail how the Constitution interacts with the people. And it's a really cool subject. It really is, looking into it. Tag, I'll go ahead and start with Principle 20.
Go ahead.
Efficiency and dispatch requires government to operate according to the will of the majority, but constitutional provisions must be made to protect the rights of the minority. And Article 4, Clause 2, is the supremacy clause. Kind of the basis behind the federal government being above the state and local governments. It says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. If a law is passed that violates the rights of the people, it can be declared null and void by the guardians of the Constitution. And who's that?
I was going to ask you, who's that, man?
The people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it raises an interesting question. Federal law supersedes state law when conflicts arise. Isn't that kind of contradictory, though?
It's completely contradictory.
You know,
federal law should only supersede state law if the state law is violating the Constitution.
No, state. You said for state law should supersede.
No, what I'm saying is there are some powers given to the federal government, right?
Right.
Those laws should supersede the state laws if the state laws are contrary to the Constitution.
Okay, you had a long day.
Yeah,
I had a long day, and my comprehension is suffering. Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's so funny. I've really enjoyed doing these videos with you, G. But it really is the land of cotton candy and rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of them, and I think that a lot of the reasons why the founders, talked about these kind of things was because they had suffered through plenty of tyrannical conduct of the Parliament, and they were pretty sensitive to the rights of the minorities. Mm-hmm. Right. And so this is why it says, to the will of the majority, but the constitutional provisions must be made to protect the rights of the minority.
Right.
And I think they were sensitive to that.
And the really sad part about it is that we've got certain segments of the population and the government that want to do away with the safeguards that safeguard the sovereignty of the smaller states or the equality of the smaller states. Mm-hmm. And they want to elevate minority rights above majority rights instead of them being on a co-equal scale. And that's the problem. That's the historical problem with America is that rights were not enforced equally across the board. So
well, of course they want that. But if the big cities could figure out a way to take away the power of all the smaller states, we would never again have anything but a liberal.
Right.
Of course they want that.
Right. And the other thing as I was looking into this, the 10th Amendment, I did not realize this, but part of the 10th Amendment is it talks about the oath of office that all these federal officials or politicians have to take. Excuse me. And that's supposed to be a trump card in this whole thing. That their oath of office, the people that go into office are supposed to be so morally upright and so ethical that they take their oath of office seriously, and they safeguard the Constitution from abuse, or they're supposed to safeguard the Constitution from abuse. And I'm reading this and I'm like, man, hey, you talk about missing the mark on how things turned out. Oh my goodness, it's just. I mean, there are politicians out there that I think honestly do want to do the right thing by the Constitution. There are some out there, but they're getting fewer and far between, it seems. On both sides.
I can't think of any.
Yeah, I know some guys over in Missouri personally
Hmm.
that are in the state house, and they'll never get elected to higher office than the state house, just because of their their stance on things.
Yeah, but that's why it's important that the states, that most of the power was supposed to lie in the hands of the state.
Hmm.
It was for this exact reason. But in the very, very beginning of this series, episode 1 or whatever it was, clear back in the beginning, we were talking about, that you got to elect righteous and moral men. And that is what guarantees all of this. And that by having the three different pieces of government, if you missed on one, the other two could hold them accountable. But here we are, we don't have any of them.
Right.
None of them.
Right. I something happened today, as a matter of fact, and I realized, well, it's a government bureaucracy. It's not one of the branches of government, but it talks about efficiency and dispatch being required, um, and it follows the will of the people. The advisory committee for the CDC uh, recommended that the the shots be part of childhood series of shots before that
Hmm.
children get. It's kind of funny, the feedback on that the public comments that people gave, 100% against, saying no, don't do it, and they uh voted against what the people wanted, and uh went
Of
ahead and
course
did
it did. Of
do
course
what.
it did. Of
Yeah.
course, of course it did. They're not afraid of the people. The people lay down like fish.
Right.
They don't do anything. They can do anything they want to do, and we're going to bitch and moan about it, but we're not going to do anything else because as long as we have Netflix, we're going to be just fine.
We as a whole.
We as a whole.
We as a whole. Okay, I'll take
I'm
that.
not talking about you, G. Don't be sensitive. You need a
No,
hug.
I
It's
wasn't. It
bonding
wasn't me. I was
time.
thinking about. It was all the people that listened to you say that and started hitting the unsubscribe button.
It's all right. We the people as a general whole are soft. We are
Yeah,
the keyless entry culture, and,
as
and
a nation,
we are, and it's sad. I know a lot of really good people who, want to stand up, who are standing up. The problem is, that getting to a majority that will do that is almost impossible.
right? The one thing about the oath of office section of the 10th Amendment, um, I started thinking about it, and the checks and balances run this way across the government because they're co-equal government. That seems to me that oath of office, when people follow it, creates a vertical check against all three of them getting out of line. And state nullification is another one that creates a vertical check. Because the states can go, no, we're not going to do this. Of course, then again, we've talked about the case before. Those two knuckleheads that made the silencer and put it on YouTube. The if the state's going to pass a law, it needs to stand beside it or behind it.
Oh, oh my goodness, G. You know how many laws are out there that just aren't followed? They talk about things like, immigration, or they talk about, gun laws, or they talk about the laws already exist.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need any more new laws. We need to enforce the laws we already have, but we don't do that.
Right. And if the states do try to nullify federal mandates or federal dictates, it looks like, or it's painted a picture of the states going against the federal government, being in rebellion,
Here, here.
you know, and it's really, it's kind of disheartening at
Well,
times.
it was supposed to be that way, but it was supposed to be that there was discord and there was that natural tension, and that the states could stand up for themselves. But the problem is they can't do it anymore because if they do it, the money's all cut off.
Right.
And all anybody cares about is more money. It's funny, they were chip sealing the road out by my house, and that's where you spray a layer of asphalt down, and then you lay gravel on it, and they drive on it and beat it in.
Yeah, they hadn't put the asphalt down on it last time I was out there. I was like, are they turning this into a gravel road?
Oh, dude, this is such an incredible waste of money. So they spray this layer down, they put all this gravel on there, and they let people drive on it for 3 or 4 days, and then they had the sweepers. Guys, I live out in the middle of nowhere, right? I mean, it's not like I live in a town. They had the street sweepers sweeping the gravel off the road today, just burning up money because if they don't burn it up, they're not going to get it next year.
And that's working for the DOD. I saw that all the time.
It's just ridiculous.
Seriously, I saw it on an industrial scale with the DOD. It was rather frustrating at times. You know, I guess the one thing that popped into my mind is how do we try to put things right? And we always go back to think local, vote local, act local.
Mhm.
You know, and the elections are coming up pretty soon, and I think people need to ask themselves, you know, will this person that I'm sending to the Senate, or will this person I'm sending to the State House, do I trust them to fulfill their oath? You know, I'm looking at the candidates here in this state, you know, and some of them are so far, they're so afraid of the politics of their own party that they don't even mention their party affiliation. You have to go digging to find out what those affiliations are, you know, and you can, I actually had to go to one page on one of the politicians. I had to actually go look at who was endorsing them to figure out what their policies, what their politics were, because the TV commercial was so generic, it wasn't even funny. And his website was about as vanilla as you could get, you know. But we have to ask ourselves. I mean, we white pill people saying, you know, none of this stuff is being followed, but we gotta give them a solution somehow.
Yeah, well, I think you'd make more dent by looking at your ballot, and if you don't know that these people are moral and sound and good people you're sending there, vote for Mickey Mouse. Just write him in. Yeah, I think you'd make just as much ground doing that as you would doing what you're about to do.
Yeah. And one thing I found interesting reading the 10th Amendment, in the second clause of the 10th Amendment, they say that they specifically mention Supreme Court judges, or not Supreme Court judges, federal judges. They specifically mention judges as the whole oath of office thing applying specifically to them. They mention all politics, but then they point out judges specifically, which I thought was very interesting, because the amount of abuse that a judge can do, or the amount of damage a judge can do if they don't follow their oath, when you think about it, it's a million times worse than a politician. You know, because I mean, we've got Supreme Court judges that elevate foreign law above the Constitution whenever they're deciding Supreme Court cases. There was a case just recently. Okay, this is probably going to upset some people. Up until last week, I had never read a story about a person being thrown in jail for not wearing a mask. I had never read a story. All the stories that I read through the whole 2 years of this thing, it was always the fact that the person refused to leave when they were trespassed, that they got arrested. They were not arrested until they took that act. So, and I know it's nitpicking, but it's a very important distinction there. There was a federal judge last week that had a guy thrown in jail for 24 hours because he refused to wear a mask. And he did it on a contempt charge. He used it as contempt, but it was because he refused to wear a mask. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's a red line that's finally been crossed. I mean, that's a very blatant red line for a judicial person to cross. You know, I can't see it getting better until we start kicking these judges and stuff out. And I'm guilty. My rule of thumb for the last 30, well, actually, since I started voting, if I don't know who the guy is, I'm going to vote against him. And seriously, that's my rule of thumb. And they make it extremely hard to find out who these judges are. You and the judges, that whole efficiency and dispatch, the judges can throw a monkey wrench in that without even trying. They don't even have to try hard to do it. So these are all important things. And I never thought when I started reading into it that I would be talking about judges and oath of offices as far as the 20th principle went. But I don't know, kind of going off on a tangent there, but it
No, but you're about to vote here in Kansas. There's a bunch of Kansas Supreme Court judges that are up, and they don't list the party. It's just a yes or no vote,
right.
And but for a long, long time, guaranteed to your story, I voted. If I didn't know who they were, I voted Republican for many, 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 many years. And then about 8 or 9, 10 years ago, I went and re-registered unaffiliated. Because I don't like the Republicans any better than I like the Democrats. And, so I vote a lot of third party. But the fact of the matter, if I'm looking at a ballot and I don't have faith and confidence in either one of their ability, I'm just writing somebody in for fun.
Yeah.
I'm not voting for someone I don't believe in, period.
Yeah, I'm to that point now too.
Yep.
I used to vote lesser of two evils at the federal level. And
Yeah.
I think those days are gone.
You know what we should do? We really need to get a million people or 5 million people out there to vote for John Galt. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah, except I know a John Galt.
Okay.
I literally know a guy named John Galt.
Oh no. Or just pick a name,
Yeah.
Pick a name. Randall Flagg.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's an omen, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Well, do you got anything else to say on this topic, on that principle of their tag?
Yeah, no, I just think that that at one point in time, we were all minorities, right? Is that they came over, and then the nation was designed to do that because I think the founding fathers experienced tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we go again, right? We're just right back into the same thing. It's so funny the stuff that they got upset about. Man, could you imagine them being alive today?
Oh man. Oh well, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now if they were alive today. They were a different breed of man, and learning about them and learning how they came up with such a wonderful document has been really eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, if we're ready, go on to the next one. Principle 21: strong local self-government is the keystone to preserving human freedom. Again, the 10th Amendment leaves most of the power to govern with the states and local governments, and this is where freedom manifests itself. This is the whole message behind freesteading, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole message behind it, and that's why we're constantly talking about building community and using that community to influence what goes on in the greater community.
Garen, I'm telling you, my goal is to build a strong community right here where we can control the political environment.
Yeah.
And hopefully inspire people to do it in other places. Mm-hmm. And if we can pick off 10 counties or 20 counties and we just keep trucking along, we might actually do some good.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I always knew the importance. I always knew that community was important, but I never knew the reason why. And I'm finally over the last year and a half, I'm finally understanding why it's so important.
Yeah, it's just critical.
And if anybody out there, if you guys are living in a community that like we're talking about, man, you need to get down in the comment section and let people know where it is. Let people know what's going on, because we need to spread the message. I mean, we're not teaching people anything here. What we're doing is we're sharing experiences. Tag and I had that discussion a long time ago, and he differentiated that he let me know the difference between the two, and we are sharing our experiences here, and both Tag and I are doing it, and you guys get down in the comments and share it there. Go on Freesteading and share it there. Do it on whatever social platform you're on. Share your experience about your community and try to draw more people in. I guarantee you that you've got like-minded people near you that you don't even know exist.
Yeah, or better yet, if you've got a community and you're working on those things, contact G or myself on YouTube or via email or whatever, and we'll do a video with you.
Oh heck yes, I would love to do that.
Right.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, I think that principle talks about how political power automatically tries to gravitate towards centralization, right?
Hmm.
And that the purpose of the Constitution was to prevent that from happening.
Absolutely.
You know, see if I can
Abs-
find the paragraph. Yeah, they go on to talk about how centralization of political power always destroys the liberty by removing the decision making function from the people on the local level to the officers of the central government.
It's one reason why I dislike the Department of Education so much. Both
But
my
this is
parents were both my parents were school teachers, and so I've got listening to them as I was growing up. I really dislike the Department of Education.
but if you just read that sentence and then read it again, I mean, to me, it just outlines it just outlines the problems that we have,
Right.
right? Centralization of political power always destroys liberty by removing the decision making function from the people on the local level to the officers of the central government.
Well, and I think part of the problem is not in Washington, D.C. or a faraway state house. Part of the problem is that people are willing to abdicate that power that they have, and they willfully hand it over to some faraway bureaucrat or politician.
Yeah, I don't remember which founding father said it, but something to the effect of when he was talking about the centralization of power always destroys liberty. And he said when this occurs, the people start to lose the spirit of voluntarism and the will to solve their own problems. I think this is super interesting, right? Because it's a cause and effect thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've been beat up and 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 beat up, and I know hundreds of people that have just thrown their hands in the air.
Right.
You know, you talk about the work you can't nobody can find anybody to work.
Mm-hmm.
People are just tired of it. Like I'm done. See ya.
Yep.
You know, people are checking out
Well,
because of this exact thing. What we're talking about right here.
doesn't help that the government knows this and they entice people to check out. You know,
Yep.
it
Well, they
doesn't.
want you checked out.
I would really. I knew a guy. I knew a guy that could have got unemployment when he lost his job, but instead of getting unemployment, he started delivering pizzas. He was making less per week delivering pizzas than on unemployment. And I asked him because the dude, the guy eventually ended up working like 4 jobs at one time. And I asked him when he started doing it, I was like, why, why are you doing this? You've got 2 kids in school still, and it's got to make life harder on you. Why don't you take advantage of it? Because it was back whenever they had extended the unemployment benefits for 36 months or for a year and a half, whatever, what from 36 months or whatever. But and he said because I'm not taking handouts. It's my responsibility to take care of my family, so I'm going to do it. And he ended up being okay in the end. He did. And his financially, he ended up being okay, and he just had a really good work ethic. So it was interesting. It was interesting. Okay, I that one. Honestly, when I was looking into it, it's kind of self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go on and talk about community all we want, but at this point, it kind of, I think people kind of checked out if we kept on it for another 15, 20 minutes. 'Cause we say it all the time. I seriously, yeah, I apologize to people because I'm starting to sound like a broken record at times, but that's the only way anybody's going to listen. You know. But anyway, okay, you ready to go on to Principle 22?
I am ready to go on to Principle 22. If you
Okay. Principle 22 says a free people should be governed by law and not by the whims of men. I knew that was going to get you. Um, the right of the people is reserved in what it was, Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 1, not to be governed by any law not passed by their representatives, U.S. representatives. Article 3 gives the power of the judiciary to prevent a citizen from being prosecuted by an unjust law which violates the inalienable rights of the people. So the key thing in that commentary that I just read, not to be governed by any law not passed by their representatives. How many entreaties are we in with the UN?
How many executive orders are govern us every day?
Exactly.
And an executive order is completely arbitrary.
You bring it closer to home than what I was thinking about. But yeah, but here's the deal. How many people applauded Trump's executive orders?
Well, it's because they vote for a party and they say he can do no wrong. Trump was no better. Well, I don't say no better because he was better than Obama, and certainly better in my opinion than Biden. But I mean, he didn't clean the swamp like he promised to. I mean, to me, it's all kind of the same thing. It's just one's a little worse, one's a little better, whatever it is, But
now when you say that, do you think that executive orders can be used as a tool by a freedom-minded conservative type president to take little bites out of what's already taken place?
Yeah, there's certainly a place for them, or they wouldn't be there. But there's a difference between putting an executive order out there, which is a recommendation. It's not a law, right? Because the executive branch can't write laws. The legislative branch writes laws.
Right.
But they could certainly put guidance out there from time to time or whatever. But I mean, because they can't get anything through the Senate or the House. They just do rule by executive order. I mean, that's not what it was intended to do. I'll guarantee you that.
Right. I think one of Clinton's people said, swipe of the pen, law of the land. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
As Clinton was putting out executive orders left and right when he first got into office.
I think what they miss, G, is I think that one of the biggest roles the federal government has, and even the state governments in some regard, is hope. What they're supposed to be doing is showing people that their future is stable, that it's secure, and that go ahead and invest your money, go ahead and build that business, go ahead and do those kinds of things. I read an interesting paragraph out of one of these articles, and I copied and pasted it. I want to read it to you because I think this just hits it right on the head. But it says, if mankind are governed by the whims of men, they are subject to the ever-changing inclination of sudden illogical changes of mind, ideas, or actions of those in power. This is ruler's law at its worst. In this kind of society, no rights are secure and nothing is dependable. Things are in a constant state of flux. Nothing is fixed or predictive for the future. The founders defined law as the rule of action, which was binding on the ruler as it was upon the people. It was designed to give society a stable frame of reference so that people could feel secure in making plans for the future. And that was said by John Locke. Well, stable's not in the vocabulary. No, I mean, this is why people are checking out, and they so don't get it. I got into a mild argument with the former CEO of a company I used to work with a bunch, and we were talking about this, and he was like, "Man, what is going on? What is going on?" And people are checking out, dude. They don't want to play the game anymore. They're sick of it. They think they can sneak up on us and, get us at 30% tax for this and 5% tax for this and 5% tax for this and 10% tax, and pretty quick, there's no one left to carry the wagon. In a healthy society, you've got 75 people pulling a wagon, and there's 25 of the needy and deserving in the back of the wagon, and that's how a society works. But today, you've got 15 people pulling a wagon with 85 people in it. What's the motivation? Nothing's predictable. Nothing's safe. I'm a business guy. I'm not going to go invest a whole bunch of money in to go build a new manufacturing plant in hopes that the regulations and things get easier. No way.
Okay, now here's a question for you. Since you're talking about checking out, and I guarantee you that somebody's going to watch this video and they're going to come up with this.
Okay, got it.
Isn't that your message at Freesteading, that we're checking out and we're not participating in their system anymore? Isn't that your message?
I wouldn't make it that simplistic, but sure, that's part of my message.
Right. I think the proper way to say that would be checking out with a purpose. If you're just checking out to check out because you don't want to play the game anymore, That's different than saying, I'm not going to participate. I'm going to create my own game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would argue, Bud, that if you take 10 people who are checking out, 8 of them don't know what the first step is.
Well,
They're going to have a hard time, purposefully participating. I'm telling you though, but of the ones that I know, they're just like, I'm going to do the minimal that I can do to get by.
right.
I'm going to do the minimum. I'm not giving my production there, right? This is what's foretold would come, right? This is how they remove their production. They're not applying. They're not trying to, they're not being the best that they can be every day because they're just doing what they have to do to get by in search of hopefully something else, will come by sometime. And I think it's not just about checking out. It's about purposefully checking out, but it's also about using the system to your advantage. And whatever we can do to use the system also, I think is a wonderful thing. And I think it's a huge sided approach because just like freesteading, I mean, I'm using the internet.
Yep.
I'm running server space somewhere. That's the system.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I know somebody would come up with that. That comment would come up eventually, because checking out is definitely part of the solution to the problem. But it's not checking it out without any plan behind it.
Well, I think, but G, I think there's another really important message in all this about the whole checking out thing. It isn't even so much about forget about making a difference.
Okay.
Forget about that because you hope that comes to be. But checking out is doing another thing too. What it is it's forcing you to take responsibility for your own. It's forcing you to say, hey, if I'm going to have power, I need to make sure I take care of that. If I'm going to not have all of this stroke over me and have all of these burdens over me and be in the middle of this game, I probably ought to get debt free. Right. And so you're putting yourself in a better position to withstand whatever's around the corner for us. And I don't think it'd be hard pressed to find anybody, especially in your audience, that would say that, bright, sunny, rosy times are around the corner.
Right.
So I think it's taking your productivity out of the system and applying it to your own personal life.
One of the things I like about what you said, we started this portion of the conversation on Principle 22 talking about free people are not governed by the will of man, but by law. And the conversation veered into checking out, and then it veered into taking responsibility. And I think at the very root of every single problem in America is that not enough people take personal responsibility. And I'm saying that from the lowest person all the way up to the most powerful position in the land. I'm not going to say the most powerful person, but the most powerful position. So many people look to it's not my fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's his fault. It's her fault. And that's the cool thing about these conversations is that we take these, we started at point A, and we wind through all these different topics when we're talking about point A, and we always come down to, it always gets boiled down to one simple thing, that if that one simple thing changes, then the problems we're talking about go away.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about fault. And, one of the biggest growing moments in my life, G, and if I could give anybody anything, it'd be this right here, is that every single thing that happens to you is your fault, period.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. And I can give you a million examples of it, but, if something didn't go right, it's my fault. But if it went right, it's also my fault. And, your decisions are what put you where you are. If you don't like the life that you're living, make different decisions. And let me give you an example. And I don't want to be insensitive to this, but that I was married my first time for 14 years. This is my wife that I had prior to Bethany. Now, my relationship ended in adultery and on her end. And at the end of the day, that was my fault. I have to take accountability for it. And I have to say, hey, I was not providing whatever. We weren't meant to be whatever. My decisions to marry her, whatever it was, my decisions were what got me where I was. I own it. That doesn't relieve her of her guilt, but that's between her and her God and her thing. I'm just talking about from my mind, for my own life. You have to start taking accountability. And this breeds even further into the political spectrum, the things that we're talking about today. If Americans would take some accountability, it is our responsibility to go and elect moral and just people. It's our responsibility to go get involved. It's our responsibility to say, hey, if my community is going to be a good community, I got to go do something about it.
Right.
I have to be accountable. Period. The problem is most people don't want to do it, G, because it's hard.
Yep. Yep. Angela and I have gone rounds at times because I've always felt I'm responsible for everything that happens to me.
Yes, 100%.
Even if I'm driving down the road and somebody slams into me, ultimately I am responsible for it.
That's correct.
I have to fix whatever happened.
Right.
Either I've got to force somebody to take accountability for it, or I have to take accountability for it, or whatever. But it's always my fault, And she, for a long time, she did not understand that.
It is so empowering when you take accountability back into your own hands. I wish I could talk to the 20-year-old me.
Oh man.
Because it's and you won't believe the heat I've taken on that statement about everything's your fault. Oh my God. Like you used the car as an example. The guy was driving.
There's a better one, but it will get us in trouble.
The guy was driving drunk, and I was following the speed limit. I was following, doing everything I was supposed to do, and he hit me. How is that my fault? You're not relieving their responsibility, but that's their responsibility. But it was your decision that put you in your car at that time, at that location, whatever. You have to look at it and say, okay, how did I contribute to whatever the matrix was? Now, this Bud bleeds into everything we're talking about at freesteading. If you go down and you go buy that Mexican tomato that's imported from Mexico, you are contributing to that system, period. It is your fault. If you decide to go and search around and buy from a local farmer, well, guess what? That's your fault too. Yeah. Period. Just take accountability for every single thing you do. That's all I got to do.
Well, and accountability. There's a thing. I made a comment about having to make the decision to sell our place. Take a moral stand and do what we did. And my thing now is no matter what happens, don't pretend you don't own the decisions that you make.
That's right.
Don't say, unless somebody has a gun to your head and they are physically forcing you to do something, you should take ownership of what you did. The only thing that somebody did to me was they forced me to make a decision. That is the only
That's right.
Because when you don't make a decision, that's making a decision.
That's right.
They forced me to make a decision, and I chose to make a decision, and I own that. And somebody made a comment and about how a 10-year Marine, knew absolutely nothing about Navy court-martial rules and the UCMJ. So apparently 10 years in the Marine Corps, I know absolutely nothing about that. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about it, and I said, the only thing the military does, uniformed service members are not robotic automatons.
No.
They can make any decision they want. The only thing that the military does, which doesn't happen anyplace else in our society, is it forces the individual to take accountability and take the repercussions of their decision. Mm-hmm. That's and I'm not saying that our society needs to be run by like the military, but if more people were forced to be accountable for their decisions, man, the whole responsibility thing would just skyrocket. Because
it's such an interesting point, because I wish you wouldn't have used the word forced in that sentence. And we're totally derailing, but
no, I think it's all part of the same thing.
You said being forced. See, I think that the way you have to live, I think, especially in the world that we live in here, is you yourself, without the motivation of something on the outside, okay, inside your own heart, inside your own stomach, inside your own set of morals and values, have to be accountable. Mm-hmm. Has nothing to do with anybody beyond me.
Right.
It has to come from me. That's interesting.
Well,
Oh,
I
I
mean,
will respond to that.
I use the word force because we're put in situations where the only thing that we must do, aside from die, the only thing we must do is make a decision. Period. And and I people run from the decisions that they make. I did. I When I was younger, I'll admit it. I ran from them. I think everybody when they're younger, unless you're just an exceptional person, ends up doing that because it's part of learning. It's part of growing up and figuring out who you are, you know. But and I use it like that because we have no other choice but to make a decision,
Mhm.
right? And like I said, if you don't make a decision, that's making a decision, and you have to face the consequences,
Mhm.
you know. And the whole key
And either way, it's on you.
Right. And the whole key is when those situations come up, and they come up on a every time, I mean, we're making decisions, that whole OODA loop thing. We're making micro decisions constantly throughout our entire life. You know, the whole key to specifically in this conversation to getting our freedom back is we have to maneuver ourselves into a position where when those decision times come up, we have options. We have the option of making decisions that benefit us and benefit our communities and our families and our communities. So, and that's the key thing. I've had people get snarky with me when I talked about the whole making a decision thing, and selling the house and becoming debt free, and that was the decision I made, and they're like, well, we're not in as good a shape as you are. We can't do that. Good for you. And I'm like, that's not the way I meant it, and that's not the way it should be looked at. You know, if you had to make a decision that you did not like and was not beneficial for you this time, what are you doing to change that? What are you doing to make it so the next time that happens, you can make a decision that benefits you and not somebody else?
Yeah, well, I think I would add to that too, which is that if you talked about someone making a decision they weren't happy with. I think we're not talking about whether a decision is a good decision or a bad decision. We're talking about take accountability for the decision. It's yours.
Right.
Period. If you want to take our freedoms back, be accountable for your own freedom. Period.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's about, like I get that too. Oh, it must be nice to have money to go do all of these things. And they have no idea that, I didn't take vacations. I didn't travel. I put everything I had into living the life that I wanted to live. And I didn't go to Starbucks and I didn't do those things. But either way, it's not about it's not about making a right decision or a wrong decision. It's about taking accountability for your decision.
Right.
And to
Right.
quit blaming other people. Quit being a victim, because that victim is playing that victim is what makes them a slave to the system.
Bingo.
You have to take accountability and say, it's on me. Win, lose, or draw, good decision, bad decision. Whether I win, whether I lose, whether I prosper, whether I don't, it's on me.
And at the end of the day, everybody, that's what these three principles boil down to. How cool is that? How we took almost an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour, a little bit less, and we boiled down all the problems that we were able to identify through those three principles, and we boiled it down to one simple solution.
You.
Absolutely. So
I'm going to get hate mail. You know that,
well,
right?
I'll probably get some this time. That's okay.
How can you say it's my fault?
Well,
Totally missing it.
and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem there is it's it being your fault is not a bad thing. It's
No,
not necessarily a bad thing.
no. And it also does not let anybody else off the hook.
Right.
I'm not taking the blame for somebody else. I'm taking accountability for what put me in the situation to win or lose where I'm at.
Right.
That's it. It's simple. And man, I'm going to tell you, G, as soon as I got my head wrapped around that, and I'm not talking about, let's talk about decisions real quick. You talked a lot about that.
Okay.
You know how, and this is such a fascinating thing. I've thought about this many times in my life, that every decision just takes 1/100 of a second. They're simple. What takes all the time is the bullshit leading up to the decision. right? All the him hawing back and forth, and right, that's what takes all the time. The decision itself, in itself is fairly simple. It's just making the decision to just not talking about it, making the decision to be accountable for your own freedom and responsible for your own freedom. And it's easy, man. And I'm telling you, it's empowering. It's so empowering.
It is. It is. And I lived I lived like that kind of for a long time, and it's only been the last year and a half that I've actually lived completely by that. And it is. Tag says it's empowering, and it is. So
Oh man. It's, and G, I don't think you tell your story enough. I think you need to do a better job of telling your story of how you got to where you are, because it's been an amazing journey. For me to be on the sidelines and watch the whole thing, I think you need to tell that story more. But it was hard, but whether or not you succeeded was on you. Period.
Absolutely.
And you succeeded. You guys are farther along here than you were at the old homestead.
Yep.
And you're free. You can actually wear that hat. It means something.
Yes. And there's been a couple times since you gave me the hat. There's a couple times since you gave me the hat that we kind of backstepped a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, I can't wear this. I can't wear this one today. It's not. I have not earned this."
Yeah.
But we got to the point where I got my Velcro patch, my what's this called? Motivational patch.
Uh-huh.
Got my motivational patch for my favorite hat that said "Free Man."
Yep. Yep. I wear it with pride, and I get comments everywhere I go about it. Everywhere. Yeah. But I earned it.
Yes, you did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you, Tag, your story, the decisions you made, and the sacrifices that you've done, as far as scale goes, much larger than mine.
No, it's the same thing, bud.
I'm talking in a specific aspect. I know we're all ended up in the same place, but making your decision would have been a lot harder for me than making my decision. Because I honestly, I walked away from a situation where I couldn't sleep every night because of it, because I wasn't sure I was in the right place doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And so when it came time for me to make the decision, it was actually pretty darn easy. The only thing we had to do was find a place to live.
Yeah. People give me credit all the time, and they say things like, "Man, I can't believe how much courage that took, blah, 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 blah." But the truth is I don't know that I would have had the courage had I not been forced.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't have made the choice. Hell no.
Right? I mean,
oh my gosh, you saw my old house. Our kitchen was nicer than this entire house put together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, absolutely. I did. No, man, I look back there's times that I look back at some of the old videos of the old house, and I'm like, oh God, I miss that place.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a good property. It was a good house. We had we were heading in the right direction,
but it wasn't yours.
It wasn't mine. And I wasn't heading in the right direction.
No, it wasn't yours. So amazing. What an amazing journey. And Garen, I'm thankful that I got to travel it with you, bud.
Well, I'm glad I got to travel with you. I still remember going out there right after you first started building that place and helping you put the joists up for pod 1.
Yeah, and here I am working on pod 4.
Folks, there wasn't even OSB on the outside of that. The very first section he built.
Yeah.
There wasn't even OSB on the outside of it. There were literally 3 walls up, and first time I went out there, we hung ceiling joists and we built the 4th wall. So yep. it's watching Tag's whole place. And if you're not subscribed to him, go subscribe so you can see what they've done and let him share his experience with you. And you're doing something here in a little bit after this is over, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I got my normal live coming up with beautiful Miss B, and we're going to talk about, we got a giveaway going on and got a lot of community stuff going on, and I don't even know if you know this or not, but and I'm not going to mention anybody's names, but so I listed on my channel 2 pieces of property that were for sale.
Yes.
Right? No, I'm sorry, 3. Yeah. One was iffy, but 3 that were for sale. I found a 4th. So now there have been a total of 4, but 2 of the 4 have been purchased by Freesteaders.
Okay, I knew one did. You're gonna have to
Yep,
tell me.
I got 2,
You're gonna
and
have to tell
now,
me offline
yep,
who the other one
yep.
is.
Of the other 2 that were out there, one we missed out on. It got bought up. It was already listed. I couldn't do anything about it. But the third, they're negotiating with another Freesteader. So we've got a shot, if it all goes well, of this year adding 3 new freesteading families to our community who bring a wealth
Oh,
of
absolutely.
knowledge and information and skill sets, and it's just I'm just tickled, bud.
Absolutely. That is so cool.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
tickled.
I think we've kind of we're completely off course now. We're not even the light from Principle 22 is behind us in the rearview mirror. So you got your live stream coming up. You got anything else you want to share with people?
Yeah, no, that's it. On the freesteading front, I've been playing with the app a bunch, and I really like it a lot. We're having some problems with the messaging feature in it, and we're just trying to work through it. Marketplace is coming along fine. It's just that's just a big project. That's just going to take us just a little bit to get all the way through, but
Yeah.
but it's good. I did a video this morning that we'll post to the freesteading YouTube account tomorrow or the next day or something like that, explaining the new forums, how they work, the search feature, some of that kind of stuff. But no, just busy. I just poured this morning. I poured concrete inside of Pod 4. I built the raised stand for the wood burning stove. I wanted it sitting up because I don't want to bend over to put wood in it. So I wanted it up. So anyway, I poured a concrete thing in there that I could put it on, and I'm hoping by the end of the weekend, I got that stove in, which means let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. I'll just start the stove and go back to work.
Oh, absolutely.
So, we're working on that. B has been harvesting seeds like mad. You would not believe the seeds that woman got this year. Oh my gosh.
She had a ton of stuff. I mean, my gosh.
Oh my God, dude. She was, when I came up here to do this with you, she was sitting on the deck with a big old bucket of green peppers, just harvesting seeds.
Nice.
So
Nice. We'll have to trade you some because ours after the move and everything, we lost some. Some of them got eaten by mice, and we did not get that many this year. So
yeah, we got a ton,
trade.
Absolute ton.
But that's cool. Yeah, we're just doing. We decided we're gonna start doing more freeze dryer stuff, and we became Sun Oven affiliates.
Oh, nice.
We folks, I'm gonna do a video on this, but we use Sun Ovens quite a bit around here because it's a neat, very easy to use off-grid alternative to a stove, especially on a hot summer's day. We didn't do it this summer very much just because of the circumstances, but back at the old place, we had started doing it more and more often. In fact, you can go back, do a search on our channel. There's a Sun Oven video back from Memorial Day of last 2021, I think it was. But yeah, so it's cool. We became an affiliate, and we want to share that with everybody because if homesteading, prepping, either one of those, they're a fantastic tool.
There's talk about a topic that you'll never be an expert of, right there. Sun ovens, man, we've cooked a bunch on them, and we're still learning a ton. Like bees, like I don't care. Anybody that tells you they're an expert beekeeper probably isn't. Just telling you.
Exactly. Well, either that or everybody's an expert beekeeper.
Right, because it's you think you got it until you don't got it.
Yeah. And then as far as the homestead goes, I gotta get everything fixed that broke last weekend for me. I'm still trying to get stuff squared away there, and I got a bunch of wood I need to bring up. I got to get that great big tree. I finally got the video of us cutting down that great big tree today, so I'm gonna get that put together, and hopefully it'll be out sometime in the next 4 or 5 days. Because when that tree came down, it was pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I got my speech from Tennessee coming out on Monday, I think.
Oh, excellent.
Which will be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, people need to go watch that. All right, Tag, you got any final words?
Yeah, I think just on today's note, I always tell you guys, to go live a little bit freer today than you did yesterday. Hold the line, don't give an inch. And I'm going to add something today. Be accountable to everything that happens to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? Can't add much to that, folks. Just go live a lifetime free and take care, okay? Later.
See you guys.
Thanks, Milo.